name's Marie and I run Harnham Physiotherapy Clinic. Our newsletter for April includes information about managing waterworks, essentially, the pelvic floor and its role in chronic low back pain, any back pain, and it's obviously an important set of muscles for bladder and bowel. So we often teach core stability exercises, and I look at it in 3 levels. So level 1 is learning how to engage the pelvic floor and the deep abdominals. Level 2 introduces movement whilst maintaining contraction of pelvic floor and deep abdominals. And level 3 is where you have these muscles engaged as part of your daily routine, daily life activities, whether it's a dynamic activity when you're moving and doing, or whether you're just sitting at your desk working and you're engaging these muscles. So the pelvic floor sits in here. It's basically the sling of muscles that we sit on that stop everything from falling out of your abdomen. Okay? The deep abdominals sit at the front, very, very deep in here. Deep to your 6-pack muscles. They are long-acting postural stabilising muscles. On the top we have the diaphragm moving up and down under the lungs, and you've got to sort of think of your body as a box. And the idea is that if you squeeze and lift the pelvic floor and tighten your tummy in a particular technique, that you can reduce the size of your abdominal cavity, and in doing so what you're doing is you're increasing the pressure, and that increase in pressure provides a supporting force to your spine. And obviously if you have good strong muscles, people who we teach this for back pain or often report extra benefits in terms of management of pelvic floor, of bladder or bowel function. Whether it's that you're racing off to the loo or coughing, you know, you can get really good benefits. And it's often a taboo subject, so we're attaching various leaflets to our newsletters for you to just read in the privacy of your own home, and some of it may resonate with you. So, just going to go through level 1 of core stability. Level 1 of core stability involves simply learning to engage the pelvic floor and the deep abdominals whilst breathing. I normally start people in a position where they're lying on their back with their knees bent, which I'll just show you exactly in a moment, but you can learn level 1 of core stability whether you're sat in the car, if you're in a supermarket queue. Nobody will know that you're trying to engage these muscles and breathe, but what you do need is some sort of regular reminder during the day to actually do it, because it's easy to forget. Okay, so if you lie on your back really comfortable with your knees bent, knees and feet hip width apart, otherwise you get stability from your legs, and have your hands just inside the bony bits at the front of your pelvis, okay? So you could put flat hands here, you find the bones and just come deep inside to that. Then you can feel the muscles activating as you go through the sequence of getting the muscles to work. Okay, so what you do, and I will go through this as if you are male or female, in the leaflets that we're including in our newsletter there will be slight differences which you can have a read of. Okay, so a couple of fingers inside the pelvic bones here. Now what you're going to do is squeeze the muscles as if you're stopping yourself from passing water, then as if you're stopping yourself from passing wind, and you lift the sling of muscles up inside the abdominal cavity. Now at that same time you may feel some muscular activity under your fingers. Sometimes it automatically works together, other times the muscles may be so inhibited by pain that they've switched off, or they may be particularly weak. To try and find these muscles, I sometimes get people to do the feeblest cough in the world, not a that's far too much, just a You can probably hardly actually hear that. But what happens is a reflex response to coughing, you automatically engage the stabilising muscles in the trunk. It's a protective mechanism. So squeeze and lift the pelvic floor. Squeeze the muscles as if you're stopping yourself from passing water, passing wind. Lift those muscles up and tighten the tummy. When it comes to tightening the tummy, it's not 100% pull-in. Okay, you would never be able to sustain that, and it would be very uncomfortable. It's a third. So what you could do if you can't just tension your tummy deeply is pull your belly button towards your spine 100%, which is really hard, but then let it go by 2/3. Then you get that feeling of tension. Some people liken this to a feeling of having a tight pair of jeans on, or a zipping up of the deep abdominals, or 1/3 pulling your belly button towards your spine. Okay? So squeeze and lift the pelvic floor, tighten the tummy, then think about your breathing. So drop the rib cage, don't let your ribs brace, and just let your diaphragm go up and down with controlled breathing, and remind those muscles not to switch off. That in itself can be really tricky, but mastering this very first level of core stability is essential because everything else builds on it. Okay? So I start people on level 1, which is squeezing, lifting the pelvic floor, tightening the tummy, and breathing. Okay? Now you could do this in sitting. So I get people to sit with their feet apart, ideally on a chair, and straddle across the chair, lean forwards a little bit, and then your pelvic floor is in touch with what you're sitting on, and you literally lift your pelvic floor up off the seat. You don't physically go up. I have seen people saying, yes, I'm doing it, and I'm lifting, and they physically lift up, and that's not how it works. So the sling of the pelvic floor, those muscles lift up off the chair, but you don't move, and your tummy tightens. Okay, so that is level 1, and you need to get up to really a minute of engaging those muscles and breathing, ideally before you move on to level 2. Level 2 adds a movement. So you've squeezed and lifted the pelvic floor, you've tightened the tummy, and you're breathing. Then what you're going to do, okay, is you're going to move a limb. So that can be as simple as bringing your arm up and then bring it down again, whilst not losing the core stabilising muscles being engaged, okay? Or you might slide a leg away, maintaining all of that core strength, and then bring it back again. Or you could do both. And I think really this is classic, you know, yoga, Pilates, the classes, they talk you through breathing and moving at the same time. A really good back strengthener that we often give to people is bridging. To make that really, really efficient, you can get people squeezing and lifting the pelvic floor, tighten the tummy. We then tuck the tailbone in, tuck the tailbone under, you're just tilting the pelvis. That means that when you lift your bottom, you don't extend your back into an uncomfortable position too much. Tighten the buttocks and then lift up. Bridging is a lovely back strengthener and great exercise for core stability. You do this in conjunction with breathing. Feet and knees are still hip width apart, hands are light, and you're not dropping your hip down. Okay, if you're dropping your hip, that means you've got a weakness on one side, so just look down, check that it's all straight, okay? And then you lower back down. A lovely way of strengthening the back and working on your core. Level 3 is where it becomes functionally useful. And it astonishes me just how many people go to Pilates and yoga classes or work on their core at gyms, but then they walk away from their class or their session and don't think about it until their next session. So ideally, what you want to be then doing is translating it into useful purpose. So whether you're sat at your desk and your back is unsupported, you can engage these muscles to give your spine an invisible corset of support, or whether you're stood ironing, walking, reaching, lifting, picking up kids, moving your shopping out of the trolley and into your car, picking up your post. And it does become a conscious control thing eventually. It's a bit like driving a car, riding a bike. The more you tell these muscles to engage, the more they will readily switch on. Okay? And please remember that after any bout of back pain inhibits these muscles. You get this vicious circle. In years gone by, people were given corsets for back pain and told to have bed rest. That switched off the muscles, weakened the muscles, and then people were left in a far worse scenario. We now look at trying to get an active muscular corset, whether it's for times when you're moving or when you're in a static posture. It really helps back pain, and the added benefit to all of this is it can really change your quality of life because it can affect problems with continence. I hope you found that really useful.